Hello. This is Antje from Byte Shuffle. Thank you for always watching our videos. This time, I've put together a guide on how to approach the Bant Control matchup with Doomsday, along with insights into sideboarding strategies. There's also a link to the pile breakdown video in the description, so feel free to check it out. Here is the deck list we will be using this time. Since this hand is too slow on the combo and can't withstand the opponent's attacks, I'm going to take a mulligan. I'll keep this hand, since I can cast Thoughtseize off the swamp to disrupt my opponent's early play, and then go all in on the following turn. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I took out Force of Will. I'm going all in. From here, I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I took out Brainstorm. I'll increase the mana needed for the combo. Since my opponent is on Bant colors, I expect them to have Dress Down and Endurance. But since my opponent has Tameo on the board, this time I'll just play around counters and go for a pile that prioritizes speed above everything else. This turn, I'll use Lotus Petal and Ponder from my hand as pile openers. I'll fill out the rest of the pile with Cyclers and Thassa's Oracle, aiming to close out the game on the next turn. I built the pile as follows: Thassa's Oracle, Edge of Autumn, Street Wraith, Cavern of Souls. I stacked the pile as Street Wraith, Cavern of Souls, Street Wraith, then drew. I'll use the pile opener to start drawing into the pile. I win with Thassa's Oracle. Before sideboarding, I'd like to review the list we used. First, the conclusion. I will explain it step by step. These are the cards from Bant Control that can impact Doomsday. First, there are the counterspells like Force of Will, Force of Negation, and Consign to Memory, along with Veil of Summer. To deal with these, I'll bring in Flusterstorm, Duress, and Surgical Extraction. In exchange, I'll cut or trim cards like Edge of Autumn and Personal Tutor. That's because cards focused purely on combo speed don't perform as well in this matchup. Next, as an alternate win condition, I'll bring in Tameo, Inquisitive Student, and Orcish Bowmasters. In exchange, I'll cut Lion's Eye, Diamond, and Lotus Petal. That's because the matchup often turns into an exchange of disruption, which slows down the pace of the game, making lands more valuable than short-term mana acceleration. That said, I'll keep a few Lotus Petals to make sure I have enough plays in the early turns. Next, against Tameo, Inquisitive Student, and Teferi, Time Reveler. It's more of a small comfort, but I'll bring in a single A Long Goodbye. In exchange, I'll cut down on days. Next, regarding Dress Down. It shuts off the triggered ability of my Thassa's Oracle. When you suspect Dress Down, it's best to use discard spells or counter spells beforehand to deal with it. Next, regarding Endurance. If my opponent casts it in response to my Thassa's Oracle, it shuffles my pile back and prevents me from winning. By doubling up on Thassa's Oracle, I can reach 4 Devotion to blue on the battlefield and play around it. Here, Nihil Spellbomb serves as a good answer to Endurance. When I cast Thassa's Oracle, I can activate Nihil Spellbomb targeting my own graveyard to counter Endurance. Since this list runs 2 copies in the main deck, I'll cut one and leave just a single copy. I'm not running it in this list, but if Vision Charm were included, after the opponent's Endurance shuffled back the pile, I could use the Millform mode on my own pile as a way to counter it. Another option is to phase out Disruptor Flute, which the opponent sometimes plays, as a way to deal with it. I kept this hand a bit carelessly, But since the combo isn't particularly fast and I've got multiple mana accelerants that don't really impact the game, I think I should have mulliganed. Surveil's effect leaves it on top of the library. I'm digging for Doomsday. I put back 2 dark rituals. Since my opponent didn't crack a fetch land after casting Brainstorm, I can expect their hand to be pretty strong. Surveil's effect sends it to the graveyard. I'm digging for Doomsday. I stacked the top as Ponder Personal Tutor Tamio, Inquisitive Student, then drew. I'll counter it with Flusterstorm. I'll counter it with Force of Will. I'm going all in. From here, I'll search for Doomsday. I'll put Doomsday into my hand. I'll increase the mana needed for the combo. Since my opponent has the 1 ring on the battlefield, I need to build a pile that plays around Endurance, Consign to Memory, and counter spells. As the turns go by, the chances of losing increase, so I want to maintain as much speed as possible. Since I have a Brainstorm in hand and a Clue token on the battlefield, I'll use them as my pile openers. Since I have to assume counter spells, Consign to Memory, and Endurance, I'll likely need at least 2 discard spells plus a Cavern of Souls. Since I've cited out Edge of Autumn this time, I can't include it in the pile. So I'll have to put Street Wraith into the pile. But using Street Wraith as the cycler comes with drawbacks. If my opponent puts Endurance onto the battlefield, there's a chance I won't have enough life, so ideally I'd want to include 2 Thoughtseizes in the pile. But I'll make one of them a Duress instead. I built the pile as Duress Thassa's Oracle Street Wraith Cavern of Souls Thoughtseize. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. Since I'm running out of time, I'll use Brainstorm as a pile opener while I still can. I'll choose Wizard. My opponent shuffled off a Ponder. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. And that's where the journey comes to an end. In Game 3, it seemed like they weren't running many Hate Bears or Planeswalkers. I took out a long goodbye and swapped it for Days. Since I can build my game plan around Tamio Inquisitive Student, I'll keep this hand. I stacked it as Swamp Force of Will Thoughtseize, then drew. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I'll counter it with Days. I took out Endurance. From here, I'll transform Tamio and start going off. Tamio's ability is 2. Tamio's ability is 2. Surveil's effect sends it to the graveyard. When I cast Brainstorm, I had some hesitation about pitching for Force of Will since I felt like I might not reveal enough blue cards, but I went ahead and used it anyway. Since drawing a dark ritual would let me combo off right away, I cracked the clue. Tamio's ability is 2. Thank you for watching up to this point. I apologize for the many play mistakes. I hope to improve at MTG together with everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up. See you next time. This is Antya.